This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so I am in the task create compensation review process template, right? And this is the template we'll actually use to initiate the compensation review process, right? The first thing that I select is the grid configuration that I did, right? So the moment I changed the grid configuration, it automatically reflected in the employee inbox, right? That is because the review process which that employee was basically, or the process which that particular manager was reviewing, it was based on a template for which I basically modified the associated grid, right? Okay, the next thing, I'll select the review options. So yesterday we selected a review options which basically identified the organizations for which we'll go ahead and initiate the compensation review, and how your approvals would happen, whether entire hierarchy, how your pools and spends would reflect, right, the budgets and spends. So all those configurations were done as part of the compensation review options, and I would go ahead and select the compensation review options, right? The third thing I would select is the employee review templates. Now, for any compensation review to happen, you'll have to first, for example, especially in our grid, if you see, we have, uh, if I go ahead and open my compensation, so let me open an employees. Uh, Let me go in here. So if I open this employee, Christine Dunst, okay, so what I've done is I initiated, so I had to set up this entire supervisory structure, right? So basically, what did I do? I created this three-level structure. I have this supervisory org at the top, and then I have two more supervisory organizations. Uh, uh, I hired employees from two different locations, and I created a few other test scenarios. Okay, and before I could launch my compensation review process, I had to actually uh, perform the merit review for my workers. And the reason I did that was because, now again, that is part of your talent setup and your talent configuration. The reason I did that is because this merit plan that I have set up for my workers. Yeah, sorry guys. So because the merit process or the merit plan I have assigned to my workers, if you see in the compensation matrix, this merit plan is based on the employees' performance ratings, right? And for those performance ratings, so if I go ahead and open this, this merit plan is based on a compensation matrix which considers employees' performance rating, right? Again, I have used a 3-point rating for it. This is again part of your talent configuration. So when you set up your talent or performance review process, that is where you create your performance review templates and you set up your rating scales and all those you set up your business process for talent performance review and all those associated configuration, right? For the part of the compensation, what I needed was the employees performance rating, right? The quartiles and segments, that is something which would come from the compensation itself. So this employee has the total base pay of 90,000, which means if I see here the midpoint is 92,250, which means I know that he belongs to somewhere quartile 2, right? So my pay range segments, they come, or these quartiles come from compensation. What I wanted or required was the performance ratings for the worker. So I launched a performance review process. If you see, there's this review I initiated, right? The review period was from April 1st 2019 till March 31st 2020, right? So in talent and performance, this is called review period, and in compensation management, we call it as process period. So if you remember, when we set up our, so if I go back, where is our, yeah, Okay, if you remember when I set up my merit plan, we spoke about include active employees assigned plan during the process. Okay, when I set up the merit plan, I we spoke about something called process period. So this is the period for which you're performing your compensation review, right? And in terms of talent and performance, this is the period for which you're sorry. So process period is the duration for which you're performing your compensation review, right? And this could be Jan to December or March to or April to March or any other period that your organization follows. And a review period is the period for which you're conducting your performance reviews, right? Two different modules, two different terminologies, and that is all. If you see for this worker, I have for this review period, I launched a performance review and I gave him a rating of 2 achieved, right? uh, I used again the same rating scale. So this is again a 3-point rating scale, the same scale I had based my compensation matrix on, right? So again, this is all part of your talent configuration. You should have your performance reviews in place and the rating scale in place, and you're just going to use them, right? Okay, so uh, all right, so I would select the review template that I used for my performance review, right? And then I'll also select the rating scale that I have used for my performance review. So if I come back and then go to the employee, no, go to the compensation review process template I have already created and based on which I launched this process. So again, I created a review template called ZF. This is a template of type compensation review and I have launched. So all my structures are prefixed as ZF. Okay, this is what I've done, right? So this is a setup I've already created. Again, this is the template I had created similar to this compensation review template I'm creating now. Similarly, for my performance review, I created a similar template, right? The rating scale I'm using is again the exact same rating scale that I've used on my compensation matrix, a 3-point scale. I did not create it, it was already available. Okay, now the next thing I define is the name of my process, right? Or the name of my process template. Uh, Effective date basically identifies the date from which your compensation changes are effective, right? So your performance review may run from April till June, but your new changes are maybe effective from August, right? So this is the date from which your compensation review changes are effective. And this is where I am defining my process period end date. Okay, so my process period starts from 1st of April 2019 till 31st of March 2020, right? That is the exact same period I have used for my reviews as well, right? So my process period end date or my review period end date is basically 31st of March 2020, right? I don't have to define the start date. System automatically goes back 1 year in the past and it will automatically take the start date based on whatever end date I have defined for my process period, right? Okay, what is the organization snapshot date? If you see, this is the structure I have in place, right? I have Edward Bowling at the top and then I have Samara under uh, another supervisory org, human resources, managed by Sumara Smith, and this one more, Mark Koras, right? And similarly, you have this entire supervisory structure, right? Now, your process period end date is, let's say, March 31st, 2020, and from April the 1st, you launch your merit process, and then your pools gets generated, and the manager review starts, let's say, on okay, so let's say your process period end date is 31st of March 2020, right? Okay. Then on 1st of April 2020 is when your comp review starts, right? Okay. And then there are a few sub steps involved in it, and we look at those sub steps. But then, and the actual manager review, it starts, which is what we looked yesterday. It starts on, let's say, 10th of April 2020, and that would go on till uh, let's say 30th of December, 30th of April 2020. Okay. And so in this period, in this 10 days, and even from this part, right, uh, your uh, managers are performing their review, discussions are going on, and they are not, even though your managers have decided what is the review ratings you get or what is the merit increase you get, they are obviously not going to finalize anything till April end, right? Now what happens if there are any organizational changes during this period, right? Should your compensation review process, so again we discussed about those reports in compensation review options. We spoke about two different reports, right? The first one is what reviewer sees, and the second one was how participants are included. So based on those reports, system would check this organizational snapshot date, check the status of an employee as of that date, and then generate the review grids as of that date, which means as of March 31st 2020, if I am in organization A, my review ratings would automatically be sent to the manager of supervisory org A, right? And this may be any date after process period end date as well. For example, in this case, let's say my compensation uh, uh, organization snapshot date, I don't want to be March 31st. I want it to be, let's say, April the 5th or April the 10th. So your organization snapshot date can be any date uh, which is not related to your process period end date, right? So I can give it any date. So this is the date as of which your organization snapshot is considered for generating your grid configuration. So if I log into the uh, uh, as Sumara Smith, I would find that there are two employees in her grid. And if I log in as Marcus Chorus, even though now I have hired, I think, a few more workers in Marcus Chorus supervisory org, uh, grid would not show those workers, right? Even if there is no waiting period configuration. So setting aside, assuming that there's no waiting period criteria configured, right? Okay, so process period end date, your organization snapshot date, your visibility date. Now, even if your compensation review is finalized as of May end or June end, you don't want the new merit increase to be visible to the employee till July 1st, right? Or any given date. So your visibility date is the date when these changes would be visible to your employee, or the merit changes, the bonus increases would be visible to your employee, right? Okay. Currency rate type. Now we know we can maintain multiple currency rates in the system, and if you remember, we spoke about this when we spoke about those currency rate types. Maintain currency conversion rate or exchange rate, and then we can maintain currency exchange rates in terms of different rate types. Now here, if my rate fluctuates every day, how would I be able to plan the compensation review if I have 10 employees in them, one out of India, one out of US, and one out of UK, right? So what we do is we select a given currency rate type, right? And usually this would be fixed with the exchange rate, which is effective as of your when your compensation review is initiated. So as of 1st of April, you'll go ahead and update this particular currency rate type which you are using, right? And then this would not be changed for the entire duration of your compensation review, right? Because if your currency rates keep fluctuating, you'll not be able to plan for your compensation increase, right? Your amounts keeps fluctuating even if it is a percentage based amount or an amount based amount, right? And then you select your reference currency, and in this case my reference currency is GBP. We'll come back and we'll see how it impacts your pools and your budgets, right? This will usually be your headquarter company. So I'm an India based company, my reference currency would usually be INR, right? Okay. uh, what are these three options? Allow pooled holdbacks, allow pooled overages, display remaining pools. So allow pooled holdbacks means if my budget is 100,000, do manager have the ability to allocate an amount which is less than 100,000, right? So even if my budget for my supervisory org is 100,000, I'm only giving out 90,000 to my employees as a merit increase, right? So only if the setting is selected, your pools can be held back, right? Which means it allows you the flexibility to not allocate the entire pool amount. Okay, allow pool overages. Can I go beyond my pool allocated pool? Right? Again, I have been allocated 100,000, and some exceptional scenario, some employee gets an exceeding performance, and maybe can I go above the allocated pool amount, right? Again, if this setting is set, it would allow me. And then do you want to display remaining pools? Again, we'll see this in the system, how these settings impact your uh, how your pools are displayed, right? So finally you have everything in place. So you have created your grid, you have created your options, you have created your template, and now you can go ahead and launch your compensation review process, right? Okay. Before launching my compensation review process, I'll also talk about, give me a second. Sorry. Okay. So before I go there, we spoke about bonus plans, right? And there's one aspect I did not speak about when we spoke about bonus plans. Let's quickly complete that as well, right? Okay. So we know, uh, if I look at, let me go ahead and close this. Okay. If you look at this merit plan, right, you see that on a merit plan, there's no option to define the compensation basis, right? Because your merit plan is always based on your total base pay, right? So if I'm giving you 5% increase, it is 5% of your total base pay, right? Okay, but with respect to your bonus plans, you can select a different compensation basis as well, right? So if I go ahead and open any bonus plan, right? Okay, there's some bonus plan. Let's see this one. Okay, if you see here, the basis is total base pay, but then if I go ahead and edit it, if I edit this bonus plan, and let's say I'm doing it from April 1st, instead of total base pay, you see that I can select other basis as well, right? I can say my bonus would be on total compensation or any other similar factor, right? Now in this case, if you remember, we said there are three workday delivered compensation basis. So if I go back, uh, let's see, where did I, so did I, this is compensation basis, compensation, yeah. So there are three workday delivered compensation basis. One is total base pay, and we know what is total base pay. Total salary and allowances, again, we have already discussed that. Eligible earnings override, and we said this provides the customers the ability to define an amount at the employee level which can be used as the basis for your bonus calculations, right? Now what do I mean by that? So this bonus plan, that I am creating, I'm saying it would be based on your eligible earnings override. So when I select any compensation basis, let's say total base pay or total compensation or any other basis, system automatically checks, for example, what is the total base pay of Steve Morgan, and I'm giving him 10% bonus. System would calculate 10% bonus based on his base pay, right? If I say 10% of total compensation, again system automatically does that calculation, right? Now now, there is an exception with respect to your eligible earnings override. When I select total base pay as the compensation basis, I'm saying your base pay is the eligible earnings based on which I would give you the bonus increase, right? Your total compensation is the eligible earnings for calculating your total base pay, right? Or any other compensation basis. But then in some scenarios, a client may say, I want to define an eligible earnings for some of my employees, right? This usually happens for your commission employees. So even though your commission plan is for 100,000, your commission employees have only attained 50% of that, right? So even though commission target says 100,000 rupees, actual commission amount or actual commission that he was able to achieve was only 50,000, right? Now that part doesn't show in the compensation, right? Because we don't see what commission was actually paid out to the employee, right? We know Workday doesn't manage that aspect, right? In these kind of scenarios, client says, no, we don't want the system to determine bonus on one of the standard or available basis. Rather, we want to define our own eligible earnings for the employee, right? Or I may say we will override the eligible earnings for the employee, right? And how do I do that? There's a task. So for that, the first thing I'll have to do is on the bonus plan, which I want to be based on the eligible earnings override, I'll select the basis as eligible earnings override basis, right? Okay, this is the first thing that I'll have to do. Uh, so uh, review template, I would note that down. Uh, Eligible earnings override, right? So first thing, I define a bonus plan with compensation basis as eligible earnings override. Now this basis actually doesn't have any data, right? Unlike total base pay, for example, for which Workday automatically calculates the amount for a given employee. Total compensation, again, Workday knows Steve Morgan's total compensation is $400,000. Eligible earnings override, on the other hand, doesn't have any dollar amount. That is something you'll have to specify for each individual worker, right? Now, how do I do that? The first thing that I'll have to define is the eligible earnings override period, right? Okay, how do I do that? uh, if I go to eligible earnings override period, okay, so I can create an eligible earnings override, I can edit one, I can view one. I'll not create one because I've already created one. If you see, this is all I have to do. I would give a name to my eligible earnings override and the period for which I am creating that override, right? So if I go back and view an override that I have created, it is, so I have created this from April 1st 2019. This, okay, till 31st of March 2020, and this is all you do, right? Okay, once you have created a eligible earnings override period, and if I go back, you'll see that there are multiple periods created. So every year, ideally, I'll go ahead and create a new period, right? So this is one, something created from 1st of for 2012 and 13 and 14 and 15. Okay, once I've done that, then I would go ahead and create eligible earnings override for a given employee or multiple employees. And how do I do that? Create eligible earnings override, right? So I want to define eligible earnings override for Katrina Dunst. I would select and then I'll select the override period. I'm selecting it as 2020, the one I created. And for this period, I want to create an override in terms of, so either I can define the override of in terms of any bonus plan, and whatever bonus plan is assigned to this employee, if it is an eligible earnings override bonus plan, then system would use this value for that plan, right? Or if I select a specific bonus plan, if you see, Workday only gives me those plans which have the compensation basis of, oh, this is strange. Is it because I'm using all bonus plans? Okay. Uh, so Workday should only show me, okay, I may be mistaken. All right. Then I can select a specific bonus plan or basically any of the bonus plans assigned to the employee. So let's say I'm selecting this bonus plan, and for this bonus plan, for this employee, I'm saying that system should calculate the value for that plan, and the eligible earnings for calculating, let's say this bonus plan gives an employee 10% bonus increase, then that 10% would be calculated based on this earnings in US dollars. Right? So instead of using the employee's total base pay or total compensation or any other basis, I'm saying calculate whatever target is assigned to the worker for this bonus plan in the compensation review process on this amount which I'm defining for a worker, right? Okay, so I define the, what was the next task? Create eligible earnings override period, right? And finally, I would create eligible earnings over. Okay, so that was my eligible earnings override, right? Okay, now if I log in as any one of these workers, and let me go ahead and do that. Once the process is initiated, and the process for initiating a compensation review is initiate compensation review process. Now there's already a compensation review initiated, then initiate compensation review process. Okay, so initiate compensation review process. Here, the moment I select the template, if you see, system automatically populates me the grid. Now in this template, in this grid, there I have only included the merit plan, right? And that is why system automatically includes the merit plan. So had there been a bonus plan, a stock plan as well, system would have also included that, right? Again, based on my template configuration, my process period end date is 31st of March. My organization snapshot is 31st of March. And there I had not defined the effective date, and that is why it is coming as blank. So had I defined the effective date on the template as well, that would also have been populated here automatically, right? And then when I go ahead and initiate the process, the first thing that it will do is it will go ahead and generate the pools, right? Now how are your pools generated? So if I go to, for example, this employee, let me proxy as this worker. So okay, first let me show you. So I have to set up two supervisory orgs. The first one is for Sumara Smith, and all the employees in this supervisory org, I have given them compensation in terms of GBP, right? So if I go to Mogda Lian's profile, for example, okay, this employee is hired from 2016, right? And if I go to her his compensation, obviously this would be in GBP, right? So I've set up one set of uh, supervisory structure for my UK employees, and Marcus Coras, this is the other supervisory structure wherein I have defined their compensation in terms of uh, uh, they are based out of US, right? So US dollars. Okay, what I've also done is I have created. So let's see from when is Christine Dunst hired. So I have hired Christine again from 2016. I have also hired Nina from 2016, if I'm not wrong. So these are basically your eligible employees, right? Those waiting period criteria is not a factor for these employees, right? But if I go to the other supervisory org for Somara Smith, therein I have hired this employee, Ricardo Powell. Uh, if you see, I have hired him from uh, June 1st, 2019, right? Let's look at his compensation. So if I look at the merit plan assigned to him, here I have defined the eligibility criteria minimum 1 year, right, on this plan. So this employee based on, sorry, here I have defined the waiting period saying minimum 1 year from hire date, right? But then, so based on the waiting period criteria, obviously this employee shouldn't be getting a merit increase in this process, right? But then on the process itself, I have said include all active employees, even if they are in the waiting period, right? Now, if you remember, what did I say? Even if I'm including these employees who are in the waiting period, system would not propose any merit increase for these employees. So they would only be displayed in the grid. System would not give him any target increase. So if you look at the description as well, default target of 0 is would be proposed, and also no budget will be created for these employees, right? Okay, so for that, let me log in as Samara Smith first. So I'm proxying as Samara Smith. So security profile, start proxy. All right, if I go to my review process, and this is the review which is in progress, system has already generated pools for them, right? Which is basically the second process. If I see here, for this employee, because I selected, if you remember, I selected when I created my compensation review options, I selected autofill, right? And this is something we discussed yesterday as well. So system is automatically filling or proposing the target increase for the worker. So if I go to the merit grid, right? But then for this employee, Ricardo Powell, he is included in the process, but the target increase which system gives him is 0%, right? Okay, now on what basis is system proposing that he should be getting a 10 to 12% merit increase, right? Let me go ahead and open a new tab. Give me a quick second. Let me log in. Okay, if I go to Zinc once again, or I think the merit plan. Guys, give me a quick second. Okay, what is my merit plan? My merit plan is ZF, right? Okay, now what did we discuss when we said how would system calculate the bonus pools? It will first check, is there any individual target assigned to the employee, right? Because there's no target oversight here, obviously there's no question of any individual target being assigned to the employee, because I'm saying target cannot be overwritten, right? Then what does it check? The second thing is that it checks, is there any compensation matrix assigned to the worker, and is employee eligible for any one of those rating factors, right? So if that is not true, then system would check, are there any profiles created for that plan, and is employee eligible for any one of those profiles, and if that is not true, then system would just assign him the default target, right? Now let's go ahead and open this matrix. Now what am I, so if I look at Mogda Liam, right? So what did system propose him? System is proposing her 10 to 12%, right? If I go ahead and open the matrix and also open Mugdha Liam. Okay, let's look at her performance. So, sorry. Okay, I have given her exceeded rating. So my first factor is rating, and her rating is exceeded. So which is in this range, right? Okay, what is the next factor? It is the parent segment of the worker. So what? Let's see what is her parent segment. So her compensation or total base pay is 130,000, which means she is in quartile 4, right? Okay, so exceeded and then quartile 4. I have two of these. And then I have the eligibility criteria. Is the employee below manager? And here I have selected management level as either individual contributors or supervisor. So let's see what is the uh, job details of this employee. She is an individual contributor, which means should be getting, for exceeded quartile 4 below manager, she should be getting 10 to 12% increase, which is what system has proposed, right? Now whenever I'm giving this range 10 to 12%, system would propose the middle point of it, right? So 10 to 12, the midpoint is 11%, right? And then system shows you the calculation. So when I click on it, it is showing me that the employee is 100% FT. There's no proration based on that, and system is giving him a 11% target increase, right? Now this 11%, what did we say? Your merit increase is always based on your uh, your total base pay, right? So how are your pools calculated? The first is your merit pool, right? So because your merit pool is always based on your annual factor, again if you remember, the moment I select a merit plan, it is always based on annual, right? So the merit pool is calculated based on compensation basis of the worker multiplied by the merit target rating, which gives the merit pool for the employee, and then it will add all the merit pools for all the employees in that supervisory structure to give me the overall merit pool, right? Okay, so let's see what is system giving him. His total base pay or her total base pay is and that is something I can also see here. So her total base pay is 1,30,000. And if I go ahead and open calculator, or let's do it here. So it is 1,30,000, 11%, which is this into zero point 0.1, which gives 14,300, which is what system is proposing her, and that is the pool which is generated. The next thing to remember that this employee's compensation is already in GBP. So the pool which gets generated is in GBP, right? Okay, for the second employee, system doesn't propose anything, but if I want, I can give him a merit increase, right? Okay, so that was pretty straightforward. Let me stop proxy. Okay, what is the next worker? So the next manager is Marcus Chorus, and I would proxy as this manager. So Marcus Chorus, let's see who all is in her. So security profile, start proxy. Okay, again, this is the merit process in his. No, okay. Now this employee has two, or this manager has two employees. The first one gets 16 to 18% increase. Again, exceeded expectations, right? So if I go to the second employees matrix, Nina Edgar, again, I would be able to exactly replicate that scenario. So exceeded expectations. Let me go ahead and quickly. So if I go to performance and performance reviews, she is exceeded expectations, right? What is her compensation? So she is from 50 to 1,34,050, which means she is in quartile 1, right? So exceeded expectations quartile 1, and she is a below manager, right? Because she is just a normal employee. So what should she be getting? 16 to 80%, 18%, which is what system has given. Again, it gives a middle point. Same is the case here, 6 to 18, 8%, and system gives her the midpoint 7,000. Her total base pay current is 50,000. 17% of 50,000 is 8,500. The new merit total base pay is for 58,500. Right? The same is the concept here. 90,000, so 7% of 90,000. 90,000, 7% is equal to this in 2.7, which gives me this is 9 lakh, is it? Which gives me 6,300. So I have, and here I have ones, tens, hundreds, thousand, 10,000. This means and seven, ones, tens, hundred. Sorry. So this is 90,000 into, sorry, 0.07, right? And this is 90,000. And this is 50,000 into 0.17, which gives 8,500. So 8,500, 6,300. What is the total amount? It is 14,800, right? But then when I look at the pool is only for 11,546. So the pool is 11,546.75. Now the reason this is the pool which I'm getting, if you see, the base pay of both these workers is in US dollars, but then if you remember, when I selected my compensation grid, I selected that the pool or the default currency of the pool is in GBP. So the pool is always displayed in terms of GBP. Let me quickly check. So if I check the What is that? Currency exchange rate. Currency rate, right? What is the rate type we selected? Oh, not rate types. So we selected the current one, right? So currency rates as of today, for what is the currency rate? Current. My source currency is US dollars and my target currency is GBP, right? So what is the exchange rate? It is this, right? So if I come in here, this and this into this gives me 11,546.753, which is what I get here, right? If I, for example, instead of 17%, which system is proposing, I say no, I want to give him only 10%, my merit amount automatically changes, and now it says out of 11,000, I have spent 76% of my budget pool, right? So your merit percentages are calculated based on the base pay. It's a very simple configuration, just the compensation basis of the worker multiplied by target merit increase, right? Okay, now how is the base bonus pool calculated? So your bonus pool would be calculated again based on the base pay you have selected. So it could be eligible earnings override, it could be total base pay. So whatever compensation basis you have selected, right? So it will take employees compensation basis. And for bonus, if you see, I can define uh, uh, a frequency as well. So if I open any bonus plan, you see that I am able to select. So annual is not the default frequency for a bonus plan. I can select, for example, for Steve Morgan, he gets 35% quarterly bonus, right? So compensation basis divided by his plan frequency, right? So comp basis divided by his plan frequency. So if I'm getting 10% quarterly, so it is 10% divided by 4, right? Then it is multiplied by employee bonus target amount or rating, right? And then if there are any scorecards available, right? We know that we can define scorecards as well, right? Then it will multiply it with scorecard, right? So my scorecard result, it is not 100%, it is 50%. It will automatically factor in, and instead of me getting $100, it will only give me $50, right? Which then gives me the bonus pool, right? There is an example from the community. I'll see if I can download it and I would share it with you guys, right? It gives a very proper logical order with an example. So if you have $1,000 and your frequency is quarterly, it divides it by 4 to give you the value. I'll see if I can pull that deck and I can share that deck with you. All right. uh, okay, any questions on what we discussed today?
No,
All right,
no,
I
Ali.
think I've covered uh, most of what I wanted to do. Uh, you wanted to know about that reward, right? Total rewards, this, right? So again, this is a template. If let me search for it. Yeah. So if you see uh, total reward template, I think there's already a template available. So you create something called, let me edit an existing template. Uh, edit total reward template and I select a template, right? You can define different templates. So let me select a template called team member, right? You define the different sections which show up in that template, right? And you also define the eligibility criteria for that template, right? So this template is available for any employee, right, whose management level is supervisor or individual contributor, right? And you only select the different fields that would show up here, right? So you configure your total reward template, you select all the different sections. Now this is all delivered, right? You select all the different sections, you can arrange them, reorder them. Now what total rewards is really helpful is that you can also show actually the results from payroll as well, right? But then we don't have any payroll configured. At least I have not worked in that part. I can see if I can pull some information that aspect and show you. We did a very small exercise on it when we did our compensation certification. I'll see if I can pull that information for you, right? But then since I'm not working in payroll, I really didn't look into it. But then if you see, you have all these configuration options. You can give it a description, you can enter some text, you can display. If you select display stock, it will show you that stock. Let me select Steve Morgan, right? I think there we can visualize this actually. If I go to compensation and see total rewards, okay, let's go to the template. And you can create any number of templates. So I think is executive template. Okay, what is the rule? The rule says any employee who is EVP. So is he an EVP? He is, yeah, he is a chief executive officer, obviously. Okay, now what all options am I showing? I'm saying display stock, right? So I'm saying display the stock details. And can I see his stock details? Yes, I can see his stock details, right? And I'm saying display bonus pay, allowances, superannuation, base pay, allowances, and then superannuation, incentive pay. I am not sure what superannuation is. I'll have to check on that. Incentive pay, benefits, and finally it shows you the stock grants, right? This is all configurable. Uh, uh, you can add any sections, you can remove any section. This graphic is auto included, so you don't have to configure it, right? Okay. Any questions on anything we discussed? Okay. I would. This is what I tell all my batches, right? Go through all the recordings, right? Review all the content, and then if you have any questions, which usually many people have, you can always we can reach out to the institute, right? Ask your team, and we can set up a review session, an hour and a half, something based on our convenience, uh, whenever you feel or if you feel that you need it, right? But then we'll not do this individually. So if three of you have doubts or all of you have doubts, just reach out to the institute, and then we can set up a session for you guys, right? I'm sure I have covered everything. If there are some topics which I have not covered, I don't think I have missed anything. And or if you feel you need any other inputs, as I mentioned, always reach out to the institute during that follow-up session, and we can do that question as well. Okay, any questions before we close? Yeah, the advanced comp process, it takes a bit of time to get our head around. Just listening, it looks pretty straightforward. But then this is what I'll ask you, and this is what I do, right? I set up a simple structure and I try to do that end-to-end process. That is where I have all those questions, or I get my questions, right? So create a very simple supervisory structure, maybe just one level with a manager, two employees. Create a merit plan, define different eligibility rules, and then launch the process, right? And see how it runs end to end. Core compensation is simple to understand. Advanced compensation is a bit more tricky. Yeah, questions?
No, I was just wanted to tell that please share that Excel document also
Okay, I'll do
apart
that.
from the record. Yeah,
Sure,
and
I'll do that.
you are going to
Mhm.
share that requirement gathering document.
The configuration workbook that I mentioned. Okay, sure,
Yeah,
I would do that. Let me make a note of that. So you need the configuration workbook. I said I will also share you some deck for showing pool setup. And then what else did you say? What else?
that
Oh, yeah, the
uh,
Excel, the working
notes.
notes. Okay.
And
And
you
then
said that you, yeah, for Korea or
yeah,
some country
oh
you
yes, okay.
implemented.
Yes, I would. Yeah. So in terms of requirement documents, I would also send the requirements for Korea POC. Sure. I will do that. I'll have to pull some of these information from my official laptop. So probably take a day or two, but then I'll go ahead and send this across. Right. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining. It was a real pleasure uh, taking this class. As I mentioned, any questions, you are always free to reach out to the institute and they can connect you with me. Right. So from tomorrow, we'll not have a normal class or a regular class. As I mentioned, whenever you want to set up a class an hour or 2 hours, I am always ready to do that. Right.
Okay, so
Okay.
we are going to
Mhm,
start implementing compensation for India office from next week.
mhm,
So
mhm.
let's say in a week or two, if we have any doubt or
Oh yeah,
regarding the
based on the
implementation, or
requirements.
yeah, or in
Sure.
the video session, so we'll just
Sure. I
get back
would
to
love
this.
to get
Yeah.
involved. No problem.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Wish you all the best. Bye, guys. Take care.
Thank you.